It's April 5th, 1980. Holy Saturday. The day before Easter. And deep inside a Catholic hospital in Toledo, Ohio, someone is being strangled to death. The victim is a religious sister. A woman who devoted her entire life to God and to caring for the sick. And the man killing her? He's a priest. A beloved, well-known, deeply trusted priest who just gave a sermon the day before. A man people came to for confession. For forgiveness. For God. But what's even more disturbing than the murder itself is what happened after. Because for over 2 decades, the church buried it. The police buried it. And a killer kept walking free, hearing confession, administering last rites, like nothing ever happened. Father Gerald Robinson was, by all accounts, a perfectly unremarkable priest. He was 41. He worked as a chaplain at Mercy Hospital in Toledo, Ohio. And people liked him. He was calm, quiet, dependable. The kind of man you'd pass in a hallway and feel safe around. Sister Margaret Ann Pahl worked in the same chapel. She was older, sharp, precise, the kind of woman who noticed everything. And she and Father Gerald had what you might politely call a complicated working relationship. She questioned his decisions. She pushed back. And he hated it. Not in a dramatic way. More in that quiet, simmering way that religious men learn to hide really, really well. Now, here's the first thing I want you to hold on to. How long does resentment have to build before it turns into something unforgivable? Because, in this case, the answer is years. Maybe decades. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time. This one goes deep. Good Friday, 1980. Father Gerald is giving a sermon in the hospital chapel. And for reasons nobody fully understands, he cuts it short. Most people don't notice. But Sister Margaret does. And it shakes her to her core. She's visibly crying, visibly trembling. This was sacred. This was Easter. And he just didn't care enough. So she goes to find him. And she tells him exactly how she feels. That she's disappointed. That he let everyone down. And whatever Father Gerald had been holding inside for years, it snaps. He doesn't yell. He doesn't cry. According to what investigators would later piece together, he just decides. He decides that Sister Margaret has to go. Not leave. Not transfer. Go. He waits for her to be alone. And the next morning, Holy Saturday, he finds her in the sacristy. She's setting up for Easter Sunday Mass. Her back is to the door. And Father Gerald walks in quietly, reaches around her neck, and starts to squeeze. He strangles her until she stops moving. But then, and this is where this story gets genuinely disturbing, he isn't done. Father Gerald has a letter opener in his office. It's shaped like a small sword, a novelty item, the kind of thing that sits on a desk and makes people smile. He goes and gets it. And then he comes back to Sister Margaret's body and he begins to stab her. Methodically. Deliberately. In the shape of an upside-down cross. Now think about that for a second. He's a priest. Stabbing a nun. In the shape of a satanic symbol. His entire plan is to make investigators believe that some group of Satanists broke into the hospital, killed a random nun, and did all of this on Holy Saturday. Of all days. A short while later, a different sister walks into the sacristy. She finds the body. She screams. She runs and finds 2 police officers who are already inside the hospital. And just like that, Good Friday becomes a crime scene. Drop a comment if you've ever heard of this case before, because most people haven't. The detectives working this case are not stupid. They look at the scene, they talk to people at the hospital, and within hours they have one name: Father Gerald. He had a public, well-documented conflict with the victim. He had motive. And when they searched his living quarters, there it was. The sword letter opener. The one that matched the wounds on Sister Margaret's body. They bring him in. And this is where Father Gerald makes his first big mistake. He tells them that a man came to him in confession and confessed to the murder. This random, unnamed man who just happened to walk into a hospital chapel and confessed to killing a nun. On Good Friday. Right after it happened. The detectives press him. Who is this person? What did he look like? And Father Gerald, almost immediately, takes it back. He made it up, he says. There was no confession. He just made it up. And at that moment, every detective in that room knows. They know he did it. They're close. He's about to crack. And then there's a knock on the interrogation room door. The door opens. In walks the deputy police chief, a devout Catholic. Right beside him, a high-ranking Monsignor from the church. Two of the most powerful men in Toledo, Ohio, standing in the doorway of an active murder interrogation. And they shut it down. Right there. They end the questioning, walk Father Gerald out of the police station, and let him go. But that's not even the worst part. The deputy police chief confiscates all the detectives' notes, their interview records, their evidence trail. Everything they'd built, gone. The detectives are furious. But it's 1980. It's Toledo. And the Catholic Church in that city is untouchable. Father Gerald is quietly transferred to another church in Toledo. No charges. No trial. No consequences. The investigation goes cold. And Sister Margaret Pahl, a woman who gave her life to the church, is buried without justice. And Father Gerald keeps doing Mass. Keeps hearing confession. Keeps anointing the dying. If this is making your stomach turn, you're not alone. Stay with me, because it gets even stranger. It's 2002. The Boston Globe publishes a story that will shake the Catholic Church to its foundation. They found evidence of systemic child sexual abuse, perpetrated by clergy, protected by leadership, buried for decades. The story spreads. Cities across America start their own investigations. Thousands of survivors come forward. In 2003, a 41-year-old woman in Toledo walks into a Catholic diocese review board. She tells them she was sexually abused as a child. By priests. And one of the names she gives is Father Gerald Robinson. The diocese debates it. And then, remarkably, they decide she isn't credible. That nothing happened. Case closed. But she had written a letter. A detailed, devastating letter. And someone inside that diocese forwarded it to the county prosecutor's office. The prosecutors start pulling threads. They find that one of the priests she named, Father Gerald, had been the primary suspect in an unsolved murder. 22 years earlier. A nun. A sacristy. An upside-down cross. And suddenly, the cold case unit is looking at everything again. By 2004, Father Gerald Robinson is still in Toledo. Still working as a priest. Still a hospital chaplain. Nothing had changed for him in 24 years. Until it did. Police find him, bring him in, and this time, there is no Monsignor walking through the door. This time, the church can't protect him. Forensic investigators re-examine the original evidence. The letter opener, the one shaped like a small sword, the one that had been sitting in an evidence locker for over 2 decades, is tested again. The wound pattern on Sister Margaret's body matches that specific blade with remarkable precision. Father Gerald Robinson goes to trial in 2006. He's 67 years old. He sits in that courtroom in his priest's collar, calm as ever. And the jury finds him guilty of aggravated murder. He's sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. He would die in prison in 2014, never having admitted to anything. But here's what stays with me. If that woman hadn't walked into that review board in 2003, if someone inside the diocese hadn't forwarded that letter, if the Boston Globe hadn't started pulling on that thread in 2002, Father Gerald Robinson would have lived and died a free man. He almost did. He came a matter of minutes away from confessing in 1980, and the church walked him out the door. Sister Margaret Pahl was murdered on the morning of Holy Saturday, 1980. She was preparing the chapel for Easter Sunday. She never saw it coming. And for 26 years, the institution she devoted her life to protected the man who killed her. Father Gerald Robinson wasn't a monster in disguise. He was something almost worse, an ordinary man who committed an extraordinary act of violence and then simply kept going, kept showing up, kept blessing people. And the system around him looked the other way because looking away was easier than the truth. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you. Genuinely. Cases like this one only get remembered because people keep talking about them. So share this if it moved you. Subscribe if you want more of Last Witness. And leave a comment. Tell me which part of this story hit you the hardest. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.